Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
G'day, I'm Troy Dean and you're watching Rinse and Repeat here on Business Blueprint. This is the series where we are helping you create recurring revenue. Why? Because that's right, recurring revenue really is the holy grail of all business models. I tell you, trading time for money, you'll just get stuck on that treadmill, and building recurring revenue is fantastic. It gives you predictable cash flow. It allows you to manage the growth of your business. It allows you to predict when you can hire staff, and it massively reduces stress levels because you're not waking up on the first of every month and going and having to find tens of thousands of dollars just to pay the rent, keep the lights on, and pay the staff. So I strongly urge anyone watching this show to think about how you can create recurring revenue in your business, and that's what we're here to do. This is episode 5. We are talking about how to make sure you will profit from your recurring revenue product. There is nothing worse than building a business that scales and earns more revenue that doesn't end up being profitable. Believe me, I did that once. It's not fun. Don't do it again. So I'm here so you can learn from my mistakes. And in this episode, this is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about why making profit is the right thing to do by your customers. I know that sounds a little bit controversial, but I'll explain in a moment. We're also going to talk about the formula of thirds and how to apply it to create your profit numbers. We're going to talk about the importance of factoring in your own salary when calculating profit, which is something that most small business owners and entrepreneurs just forget about. We're going to talk about how technology will help you create profit from your recurring revenue product. How to identify which standard operating procedures are the profit makers in your business. How to employ technology and your team to scale the delivery and the profit of your business. And how to determine if your business model can profit at scale. Because just because your business model is making a profit by serving 500 customers doesn't necessarily mean you'll be making the same profit margins once you scale up to 5,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 customers. So how can you determine that your business model can profit at that kind of scale? Are you ready? Let's get started. Profit is not a dirty word, my friends. I just want to get this conversation right out of the way, right up front, because this is a very, very common conversation I have with lots of business owners and entrepreneurs, and have had over the last 3 years and continue to have when I travel around and go to networking functions and conferences and conventions and speak to business owners. It seems like small business owners are allergic to making profit. My friend Mike McHenry, who's an accountant who I'm going to introduce you to a little later in this episode, he mentions that when people end up in business, they might have come from having a job or being employed, and they end up having their own business. And as an employee, they've been used to making a certain amount of money. And when they end up with their own business, they kind of feel a little bit guilty making more money than they were making as an employee. So whatever relationship you have with money is entirely yours, but you need to do whatever work you need to do on yourself to get yourself comfortable with making a profit. And I'm actually going to explain why making a profit is really important. And I'm not just talking about how much you pay yourself out of the business. I'm talking about how much profit the business actually makes. So I just wanted to get that conversation out of the way right from the start. Profit is not a dirty word. We cool? All right, let's move on. You need to make a profit. You need to make a profit so that your business is sustainable moving forward. You need to make a profit so that you can pay yourself a decent salary out of the business and that the business can continue to grow and pay for that growth. As your business grows, you are going to incur more expenses. You're going to have to pay for growth. You're going to have to pay for staff. You're going to have to pay for marketing and promotions activities. You might have to buy more product to fulfill orders. If you're an internet-based company, you might have to buy more hosting or buy more servers to deliver the product to all of your customers. So you need to be making a profit so that you can fund the growth of your business. But over and above that, your staff need you to make a profit. Because if you're not making a profit, then you can't pay your staff. Nobody wants to work for a business that is financially vulnerable, and your staff will know that. They'll just be able to feel it if you're financially vulnerable. So you do owe it to your staff to make a profit. They are relying on you for their livelihood. But I think most importantly, the conversation that no one is having is your customers actually need you to make a profit. And I know this might sound counterintuitive, but if you have customers that you're serving through delivering a product and you don't make a profit, and you eventually hit the wall and go out of business, then you've got all these customers who are relying on you and who have a relationship with you and are buying value from you, who now have to go and find a new vendor, a new supplier, a new merchant. And that's inconvenient for your customers. So your customers actually want you to be profitable so that you can sustain the business moving forward. Now, your customers are never going to tell you that. They're never going to say, I want you to make a profit. Of course, they're just going to want to get the best deal at the best price. But your customers deep down, subconsciously, without even knowing it, they do want you to be profitable so that you can continue to serve them. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the formula of thirds and how you can apply this to your profit numbers. So if you're just starting out and you're looking at launching a new business and you have no track record, this is a great place to start. This formula isn't applicable for all business models. If you work in fast-moving consumer goods, for example, if you sell any kind of food product in the supply chain, if you're selling like Aussie Farmers Direct, for example, where they're selling food produce to customers, the margins are much lower, but they work on volume and quantity. If you're selling $50,000 camper vans and caravans for a living, then your margins might be a lot higher, but you might work on smaller turnover, smaller quantity. But this formula of thirds is just a good place to start the conversation around profit. If you're an existing business and you've been going for a while, but you're not actually paying attention to your profit and loss statement, then this is a good place to start the conversation with your accountant. And the formula of thirds I was taught by my friend Mike McHenry, who's an accountant, who I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. He taught me the formula of thirds, and I'll teach it to you right now. This is, as I said, just a good place to start the conversation around profit. So let's go to the blackboard here. And the formula of thirds just looks like this. 33% of the revenue that you make is generally tied up in the cost of sales. So if you sell something for $100, it generally costs you around about $33 to sell that product. Now, if it's a physical product, then it might have cost you $33 to actually buy that product to sell it. If it's a service or a digital product, then it might cost $33 to deliver that product in terms of sales staff, marketing staff, computer overheads, hosting, whatever expenses that you've allocated to actually making that sale of $100, those expenses, as a rule of thumb, should account for around about $33, which is 33% of that revenue. The next third is 33% of revenue is the cost of running the business. So that is just the normal administrative costs and operating costs of the business. So rent, office space, computer leases, staff that aren't involved in sales or marketing, so admin staff, support staff, any vehicles you have or computer leases or equipment, anything that's just involved in running the business that's not directly related to selling that particular product. And the final 33% of the revenue is the business profit. This is the profit that the business makes at the end of that sale. So if you sell something for $100 and you take off the $33 of cost of sales, you end up with what's called gross profit of, in this case, about $67. If you then take off the $33 of operating costs, you end up with what they call net profit, which is $33, or in this case, $34, $33 or $34. So a third of your revenue is cost of sales, a third of your revenue is operating costs, and a third of your revenue is what you should be aiming for to declare as net profit in the business. Now, here's the big trap that a lot of small business owners fall into. You need to factor your salary into the operating costs or the sales cost in the business, depending on what it is you do. So in my example, I spend about half my time in sales and about half my time in non-sales activities in the business. So my salary is split between cost of sales and operating costs. I'm going to tell you a little bit later in this episode how to work out what your salary should be, but right now, just know that the 33% profit that you're making in the business is not your salary. That is not the salary as the business owner. If that's the way that you're operating your business at the moment, then you've just given yourself a job and you are the boss. But you don't kid yourself, you're not building a business. A business supports all of its staff, pays all of its bills, including a salary for the owners, and it declares a profit. Ultimately, what you want to be able to do is build yourself out of the business, replace yourself in the business, and have the business return a dividend or a profit at the end of the year. So you need to factor in your salary into the running costs or the cost of sales in your.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.